father was introduced to fine wine in his late 20s when he married my mom in 1952. And along with his bride came his in-laws, who had a cellar full of the time the greatest wines one could buy. The first growth wines from Bordeaux and the Grand Cru reds and whites from Burgundy. And Dad never saw a bottle of wine growing up in San Francisco in his family, which I described as sort of a working class, wealthy Irish family. His dad was the first generation born in San Francisco. His grandfather came from Ireland in 1870. Dirt poor, but became very successful as a builder. But being essentially one generation removed from Irish peasants living on dirt floors, fine wine anyway, was not part of the deal. So when he married my mom, he kind of entered a new part of society where fine wine was, a thing. So he took to it like a duck to water and became fascinated with the history. And he had majored in European history and political science at Stanford, where he went for 2 years before World War II and then finished up after his time in the service in the Navy. So fine wine was fascinating to him, and also he thought it was his sort of gateway to, the upper part of society, the country club life that he was being introduced to. And also because of that, he wanted us, by us I mean my sisters and myself, to learn about fine wine at a much younger age. So wine was really a part of our family life from the very beginning. I really don't remember the first time I had wine. And Dad was very keen on having the finest wines in the house and telling us the story behind each chateau. And I really remember his missives or his discussions always centered around land or the terroir. It was always about this site was the best site. That's why this wine's first growth. This is why this vineyard is Grand Cru. There was never a discussion of winemaking. It was all about terroir. But anyway, after about 20 years of collecting these wines and teaching us about them as we grew up, Dad had some success in the real estate business and got the bug to go to Napa in 1974, almost 50 years ago now. It's hard to imagine. To buy some land and start an estate winery with the goal of becoming a first growth quality left bank, i.e. Cabernet Sauvignon producer, which of course Napa is most known for Cabernet. So Dad's instincts took him only to mountain sites in 1974. And it's I think worthwhile remembering how different Napa Valley was in 1974 than today. I don't think there was a restaurant in St. Helena that served dinner in 1974. It's just a very different landscape, and really all that was happening was the estates that were being developed in Oakville and Yountville, and Napa was the head of the county, and St. Helena was an agricultural town where other things happened besides grape growing. So Dad looked at Spring Mountain and Howell Mountain and chose Spring Mountain primarily for two reasons over Howell Mountain. He thought the eastern, or primarily eastern exposure, was a better, gentler light than the eastern or the western exposure of Howell Mountain. And then also Spring Mountain has a lot of water, so that was the reason for choosing the property. And now after 50 years of growing grapes there, I think Dad made a fabulous decision. If part one of the winery story is the story of my father getting introduced to fine wine and then getting the desire to start a winery, finding a great piece of property on Spring Mountain, beginning planting and beginning the business of wine. Part two would be the first generational change, the changing of the guard. So Dad handed the baton to me in 1998, and he had I should say, very little success in one important aspect of the winery, and that was sales. It was just a part of the game that he was least prepared for and liked the least. In the 80s and 70s, it was a little bit of a rougher trade than it is now. And he had some pretty bad experiences, and it really turned him off to the whole business of selling wine. And also because of his personal life and his second wife's desire to have a home built on this pile of lava in the remote part of the Big Island in the 80s, it really kind of broke Dad's concentration. So when I took over in 98, the winery really hadn't been doing that well for a number of years. So the first thing I brought to the winery was stability. But I also brought with it, what I inherited from my father was my love of fine wine, and also that sense of the noble calling of wanting to make great wine. which I got from him. I really learned my wine values from him. I was once asked by a master sommelier who visited the winery a couple of years ago. He said, "So how's your style, vary from your father's style?" And I said, "Well, as far as style goes, I don't think there's really been any difference. Just think we've gotten better at it." And I think one of the key things I really helped improve when I came back was bringing a more sustainable, slash organic, natural way of farming and also making wine. So we did get almost right away certified sustainable, and also brought in the solar powered aspects. So we're completely solar powered since I think 2007. So we've become much more of a sustainable business, and also brought more of a stability to the sort of the feeling of working at the winery. I brought with me the skills I'd learned in my previous career as a general contractor and creating a team environment, creating a place where people wanted to work. And because of that, for the first time in our history, we've had long tenured employees, which is just so important in this business. Matt, our general manager, who's such a key player, has been with us for, I think this is his 29th year. Laura, who manages the tasting room, it's her 27th year. Art, the cellar master, took him 10 years to sort of get rid of the tag new guy. Now he's on year 20, and he's doing a phenomenal job. So the winery really now is in such a great place. The vineyards are all mature, and they're all healthy, and producing wines consistently year after year. And I think I've also brought a creativity to the wine making program, and I've expanded the lineup quite a lot from just the Chardonnay, Merlot, and Cabernet that my dad made, and also really expanded the Merlot program. Merlot is my favorite varietal, and Dad really wanted to focus on Cabernet, which certainly makes a lot of sense. But I also think that our terroir on Spring Mountain is one of the greatest places to make Merlot in the world. So we've expanded the Merlot program, shrunk the Cabernet program just a little bit, and also added things like Zinfandel, which my father actually never even knew about, and a few other things too that I'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about the third generation. So it's been a wonderful second period. Now for me, it's been 25 years now, which is amazing to think that it's been that long. But when I walk into the cellar under Riley's house and I look at all the wines we made over the last 25 years, it really gives me an immense feeling of satisfaction. And also, I guess the third phase, or part 3, which we are just beginning, sort of a transition from 2 to 3, is the third generation, and that's Riley, who's been working with us now for I think seven years, maybe going on 8. And with his addition and his youthfulness and his incredible ideas, there's been a little bit more of a feeling of now it's time to do some experimentation and a little bit more creativity and a even further diversification of the wine program. We planted some experimental varietals that were partly Riley's idea in 2018, and I think we're the only ones on Spring Mountain, maybe even in all of Napa, who are growing Menthea and Mataro, which we are just beginning to make red wines from, and actually we're starting to sell the Mataro now, which has been a lot of fun. So it's probably worth making this point that family wineries that began in the 70s have become a vanishing species, and I really feel like we're one of the last of the Mohicans. It's a very difficult business to have success at, which we are, and it's a very difficult business to pass down from generation to generation because of the tax issues that we face upon the transition. So we've done it once. We're preparing for the second transfer sometime in the not so near future, I hope. And we're just in such a great place. I'm so proud of our team, so proud of what we're doing. I'm really enjoying working with my son, something that my father and I actually never really were able to enjoy because of a lot of reasons I don't want to get into now, but we'd actually never really worked together, with the exception of the harvest of 1977. So I left after that harvest, came back in 98 when he retired, and there was a sort of a clean handoff. He did live another 8 years, and he was able to see the success that we started to have. It'd be great to show him what we're doing right now. I think he'd be really impressed. Although he is in the tasting room, still watching over us. But I think we're good to go for the future too. So we've really become that rare multi-generational estate winery that is having success, and I think will continue to have success going into the future. So I think we're a great program to follow and to get to know. You can actually come to the winery, visit us, meet the people who make the wine, meet the family, and see, a working farm up close and personal, which is what our number one priority is the farm. Number two is winemaking. And number three is sales. And number four is hospitality. So we really try to do all these things with our team of just 7 people making 12,000 cases of wine. So again, I'm really proud of our program. Best way to support us is to join our wine club. We have several wine clubs all on the website. They're phenomenal deals. Our biggest wine club is 8 bottles a year, so it's a very low commitment and a great way to stay in touch with us, get on our email list, and keep track of what we're doing during the year, because we're a fascinating group of people.